Okay, ready, here we go. Hey everybody, welcome to our new podcast. This is the History of the W. It's a podcast about the history of Widener football. I'd like to welcome everybody to our first show. My name is Pete Garcia. I'm a graduate of Widener University, class of 1996. I played at Widener University from 1992 to 1995. I played a couple of positions while I was there at Widener. I was a starting offensive tackle my freshman year, and the subsequent years I was the starting center. I was awarded first team All-MAC Conference 3 times in my sophomore, junior, and senior year. I was also Don Hanson Football Gazette Regional All-American, and I was also bestowed the honor of being the offensive captain in 1995. For my real job, I work in IT consulting. I work for a company called Deloitte. I travel all over the country doing IT work for them. I'm currently married to my college sweetheart, I would say. Her name's Jennifer. We've been married since 2000. We met at Widener. We have 3 sons, and we currently live in Lower Merion. And I'd like to pass it on to my good friend, my brother, my teammate, Boonta who is our co-host here. Boonta, how about an intro?
Yeah, thank you, Pete. Everyone, my name is Boonta K, or last name Kumtirath, but we like to keep it short with just the K. That's how they kept it through high school and through college. Luckily, we didn't have the whole last name. It was wrapped around the jersey, So, yeah, I played with Pete, teammates for 4 years at Widener. I think we all graduated at the same time, too, Pete, right? 4 years?
Yeah.
So that was, I think, a distinguished honor for us. Not too many people, make it out there in 4 years, playing sports.
For sure.
Played wide receiver, kick returner, punt returner. I was All-MAC 4 years. Unlike Pete, I didn't hit the All-American status, but I was an honor to play along with a lot of All-Americans, that we provided on the squad. So, as far as real jobs, I work at Campbell Soup. I don't make soup. I just, manage a team that distributes the soup to the customers. As far as family-wise, married, wife's an architect, and I have 2 sons, and boy, they're such a handful. So, that's a little bit about us, but I think, we want to get into the meat of this, Pete. We have lots to talk about the W. What do you think?
Absolutely, Boonta. So, the idea behind the podcast here is that Widener has such a rich and storied history for their football program. For those of you who don't know, the first year of the football program was 1879. So way back, almost 140 years. In that time, we've had no kidding. In that time, we've had over 700 wins, which was achieved this past season. Only about 35 other NCAA programs in all of college football have achieved that as well. So, you have the Notre Dames and the Michigans and the Navies and so forth, and then Widener. So it's a really, incredible feat that we've hit that number. On top of that, as most of you know, we've had 2 national championships, 1977 and 1981. We've won 20 conference championships, the MAC conference, since 1975. And countless other playoff appearances and so forth. So, there's an incredible amount of history around Widener University. And the purpose of this is to capture some of that, to talk to former players, to get some of those fun stories from camp, from games, from the campus, things that happened to them, in and around school, injuries, etc. That's pretty much the gist of what we're going to talk about here. So we want to, again, capture those fun stories, those fun memories. We don't want to lose them to Father Time. So Boonta and I got together. We started talking about this, and we were incredibly excited right away. I mean, I know just between the two of us, we have tons of stories that, just from our time. There's, many more years before us, and quite a few, unfortunately, after us. That can fill in a lot of gaps and talk about different times, different eras, different coaches, etc. So, the hope would be to get more people on the show, to spread, their stories, to share their stories. Again, Boonta and I met a couple days ago. We were talking about this podcast, and we had brought up a certain situation, and both of us have two different views on it, because I was in the middle playing center and he was out in the end playing wide receiver. So there's plenty of things that happened that I didn't know about and that he didn't know about. So we have some sharing that we can do between each other, let alone if we bring in some more people. So that's pretty much the story here, right, Boone?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we don't know. Like, I don't know exactly. I don't know what happens, in the huddle, and he doesn't know what happens, outside, like, by the yard lines or by by the sidelines. But it's just only me and the D-back, so there ain't too much to talk about there. But I would love to hear the stories about what happens in the interior line there. But just to kind of reiterate, going back to the history, Pete. I mean, we Widener, right? I mean, we want to talk about this, like the history, between like PMC, Widener College, Widener University. Many eras, many great players, I mean, tons of, I would say all match, and a couple in the pros. So traditionally, we have a strong, solid program, and we want to keep that going. And, we want to bring those guys on board to tell their stories, just like us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know, between, Boonta and myself, we were very fortunate to play in the time frame we did. One of the things that both of us have the distinction of is being on the very last team to play at the old stadium, Memorial Stadium. For those of you listening, at the time, that was the 1993 season, and man, that sounds so long ago. and at the time, yeah, it was. and at the time, the stadium, Memorial Stadium at Widener, was the oldest football stadium of at any level in the United States. That would go from Pee Wee, high school, college, and pro. It was quite an honor to play there. From a memory standpoint, from a body standpoint, it was pretty rough. The field was pretty bad its shape at that point. I remember it used to hold a lot of water in certain spots because it wasn't crowned, and they'd put this like red kitty litter down. Remember, we used to get all that stuff in our helmet and our pants and everything. Oh, what a mess! But that was still quite an honor. Now the second part to that story, and as you remember, is we were also the first team to play at Quick Stadium. So we got to see both sides of the coin there, which was a pretty cool thing. So what's maybe your favorite memories, Boonta, maybe from Memorial?
So Memorial, I don't know, it would be like a favorite memory, but Pete, I remember, I mean, I think every time we played there, it's always raining or it's wet, the field, like you're right. I thought I was fast, but man, that field like slowed me down. I felt like I was running like a 4.9 or 5.040, but I think one of the most memorable games I thought for me was the Wilkes game in the rain, pouring rain. Like in high school, I think they would have canceled that game, but college, there's no cancellation unless it's lightning, right? But that was our I think that was our freshman year. I think it was our freshman year, and we were tied 14-14. Was it 10-10 or 14-14? I'm trying to think here, if you recall.
Yeah.
And we had the ball, pouring down rain. We were driving, right? And Vic threw the ball to me. I was trying to get out of bounds, and I made the first guy miss. And I think we were on like the 30 or 25-yard line on Wilkes' side. And all I had to do was get out of bounds, and Jim Worker went in and do his usual, kick the field goal with his barefoot, right? Our only barefoot kicker. But instead, I fumbled the ball away. What I learned from that too was just playing hard, but you know what? You have to remember that, in a game and in a situation like that, you have to put the team in a situation to win. And I think I just overdid myself. And to me, every time I think about that field, I always think about that game. It always sticks in my head. Like, we could have won the game, but instead we end up tying Wilkes. That was my memory of Memorial. But it always haunts me in a way because it's like, man, that was an opportunity for us. We were doing great, and I tried to do too much, and the ball just like slipped out of my hand.
Yeah, I know how you feel, Boonta. As someone who probably didn't handle the ball, or I probably handled the ball more than anyone else in the 4 years we played together. Having played center, I know I wasn't running touchdowns or catching ball, but nothing happened without me making sure that Vic, and for those of you who are listening or not sure who we're talking about, Vic Amy was a quarterback for Boonta and I, who again, another great friend and a fraternity brother of Boonta and I, and was also a Gagliardi Trophy finalist, which is the Division III Heisman Trophy at one point. But he again, we had to get the ball to him and to make all the magic happen. And I know how you feel. I had my share of fumbles. And one time I remember we played at FDU Madison in '93 up there, and it was an absolute pool of water on the field. And I mean, I swear to God, the ball would look like it was halfway underwater. And for some reason, we just really couldn't move the ball. So Coach Bill Cubitt, who was our head coach, decided we were going to run shotgun that week. That just right then and there, like, let's go shotgun in the middle of the game in all this mud, and it was just not working. And I remember them actually sending like anyone into the game, like a lineman, just for one play that was clean and we could wipe our hands off and stuff. And it was so disgusting. And I remember we just played really poorly that day, and that was the one game where he actually he benched all of us in the fourth quarter. For beginning of the fourth quarter, that was the first and only time I was ever benched because we all played so poorly. But yeah, that was a rough one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally understand, man. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know, like, the benching was a good or bad thing, but like, in our first 2 years, though, right, we had a lot of inconsistency because this is what happens when you start. Wow, how many freshmen did we start? I mean, we were basically a new team.
At least half, Boonta. I don't remember the statistics, but it had to be at least half. And some of the other guys were. I don't really recall many seniors. I mean, there was a couple of seniors when we were freshmen.
Yeah.
And they just, kind of played and they did their job, but you could tell that the new squad was coming in town. And then I guess our sophomore year, '93, I don't remember a senior at all. I mean, maybe the McHenry boys, I think.
Transfers.
Yeah,
but the McHenry boys are in like a transfer.
And Steve Bloom maybe, and Paul Dixon maybe. But that's, I mean, it's very. I mean, it was less than 5, and for 22 positions, and everything else was freshmen and sophomores. So it was definitely a fresh young squad. But
I mean, I think like that too, setting us up for success because our first 2 years, right? I mean, we were 3-6-1, 6-4, and then all the magic happened after that.
Yeah, so. That's true. Well, I got to tell you one funny. I'll give a funny one, a good memory, I guess. I don't have from Memorial Stadium, so we're still struggling, I guess, a little bit. Both our freshman and sophomore years, although we had a good run sophomore year for the most part. But I remember. In '93, I started at center that year for the first year, and Joey Weisinger, who was another great friend of ours. Hopefully, we can get Joe on soon. And we were the same year. We all came in together. We eventually fraternity brothers and everything else. But Joe was my backup at center, and he worked in at other places. But for the most part, he was a backup center. And every Friday night, he'd find me. He was like, half in the bag. Hey, Pete, don't get hurt tomorrow, man. Don't get hurt tomorrow. Like, and I was, I mean, I'm sure you were too. I mean, I was, living clean at that point, especially on Friday nights. And hold on, let me put it on pause for a minute.
Yep.
So so Joey was was the backup center. So I can't remember what team we were playing. I think it was a little bit later in the season, though. I think maybe game 7 or 8, something like that. And we were driving down the field, and I think we had hit maybe about the 10-yard line. And we ran a play where the left guard would pull out to the left, and the tackle, who was Dave Braxeter at the time, came down to block the nose guard. And I had to go in with a double team on the same guy, and then one of us would move up to the linebacker. And I came in to engage, and my left arm went up, and my hand went up to make a punch on the guy, and Dave's helmet, his face mask, went right into my elbow. And really, I mean, I ran off the field. I pretty much played through just about anything, but that was one time I got pretty hurt, and I ran off the field to get looked at, and they're screaming. Coach Sam is screaming for Coach Nick Salmon, who's the offensive line coach. He's screaming for Joey Weisinger, going, Weisinger, get in there. And he's talking to a girl in the stands. So he runs in, and I mean, again, we're like just inside the 10-yard line. And he, I think it's maybe 2 or 3 plays and they score, and AJ tapes me up or whatever. But I think he came off. I know he was pretty hungover. I don't know if he got sick, but he was pretty pissed off at me for. I told you don't get hurt. So it's just, so I'm like, maybe let off the beer a little bit on Friday nights there, Joe. You never know when you're going to get a chance, right? So that's probably my favorite memory of a Memorial. I don't have any I remember winning some of the games, and the stands and the homecoming being much more free and open and big, I guess, when everything was right there in the middle of campus. But that's the one big memory that sticks out in my mind that I chuckle at every time I think about it.
Yeah, I you just brought it up too. Like I think another memory that really sticks in my mind too is when just thinking back, like that transformation from high school to college, right? Where when I played, we packed like 3,000 to 4,000, on the stand like every Friday night. When we played at Memorial, you're looking up there, you're like, man. Majority of the stands were open, right? I mean,
yeah.
Like, where were the people? So that was kind of hard, trying to blow. I thought playing on a Saturday afternoon, versus Friday night games, where I used to play. So, but yeah, I remember I used to look up at the stands and man, where's everybody at? Like that was a shocker to me in a way. I don't know about you. Like, did you get that sense too?
I did, and I often wondered why, such a program that had the story that we have, that it couldn't bring more people in. But, I guess it really does come down to, is that your school? Is that your squad? Are you really tied to it? And that's the one thing I know we're all trying to do. Raise the awareness of the school, raise the awareness of the program, things like that, to show how good of a school it is, how good of a program it is, and why you should go to a game even if you don't go there, or you're someone from your family doesn't go there, because you're going to see an awesome football game at a great facility and have a lot of fun and have that same college-like atmosphere you would at a really, really big school. Just there's not going to be 100,000 people there. There's going to be 4,000 people there or 2,000 people there or something like that. So
right.
It's I agree with you. I was always curious, but I could say maybe that area is not really big on college football. I mean, high school football is kind of a sacred thing. Friday nights, I mean, that's what they do. So just what it is. But if they keep winning, they'll keep bringing more people in. That's pretty much what it
Yeah,
is. I mean, it seemed like we had more people when we were winning, right? It felt like it anyway.
yeah. But only that, I think like now too, like with the whole tailgating and how the coaches and the program has made a complete turn
Yeah.
to support that on campus, where parents can come and party or drink, and it seems like more students are coming out and doing that. It seems like more student body, more student support. So I think we're turning the right way.
Yeah. No, absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. That's
We
good.
want to talk about our coaches and how we got there, man. I mean, how
Yeah.
did you get to Widener, man? Like, who recruited you?
So I go. My story for Widener goes pretty far back. My dad grew up in Marcus Hook, and which is not too far from Chester, where Widener's at, and my grandfather and Billy White Shoes Johnson's father were on the police force together. So my dad knew White Shoes way back when, and my dad played football with Billy's older brother, or one of his older brothers, I believe. And so my family goes really far back with that. And I just remember my dad always saying when I was a kid, he'd talk about Billy a little bit, and then he'd say, look, if you come from Philadelphia and you play football, if you don't go to a big school like a Penn State or a Rutgers or something like that, or Maryland, you went to Widener. That's where you went. And I went to high school, and I just had a decent career there, and I never thought I'd be able to play beyond that, which was never really crossed my mind. But then when recruiters started showing up from a lot of local colleges, smaller colleges, D3 stuff. I mean, I had some other people visit me and send me letters and all that stuff. I'm sure lots of people did, but when Widener came and to talk to me, it was Coach Woody, it was Dave Wood, who was a former head coach at Widener.
Right.
I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And I remember my coach telling me at the end of talking, and he said, Pete, I know you could play at that level. I think this is a good move for you. So I went to visit campus, and it was just an easy decision. Having that long history, and just to add to that quickly, I mean, my wife, Jen, who went to Widener as well. Her father went to Widener for a while too, and was on the track team in Fraternity Brothers with White Shoes. So they go way back as well. So the family history for Widener is pretty deep in my house. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I mean, I hope to continue that too, like with my kids. But that's a long way to go. But that's a great story, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, so for me, how I got to Widener was actually, it was that transition period where I think Man Love was, going out, and Cubit must probably coming in, but I didn't know Cubit, I didn't know Swan, like all those coaches. So the one that really recruited me was Taylor. But I already had my mind set going to Widener because of the program, like the engineering program. I was going to study, engineering. And out of all the small schools, Widener was the top, for me as far as like what I needed, what I was looking for. And when I went to visit, it was like my senior year, and I remember sitting in the room, and this guy Vince Toohey, who was the track coach at the time, started talking to me. Till this day, he claims that he recruited me, so I can give him some credit for that, right? So. He's like looking at my tapes, and then he started like talking, and he's like trying to recruit me for track as well. And I'm like, listen, I'm like a one sport guy, like all I can do is just play football. I don't know if I can do like sports like year round, because we want to focus on education, and there's not enough time to do 4 sports or 3 sports, like in high school, right? So so a lot of that goes to Coach Taylor. And then I remember coming in my freshman year, or actually the summer before camp, when we had to come in and take our tests to see where we are, where we're going to land as far as like classes and all that. Cubit comes walking around and starts introducing himself. I'm like, who's this guy, right? Because I didn't know too much about Cubit. I didn't know too much about like the whole coaching staff. And then I remember getting a phone call one night, and it was Cubit. He's like, hey, Boonta, do you remember me? And I'm like, yeah, is this Shorty? So Shorty was the coach at Millersville that originally recruited me, and and where I signed my letter of intent to actually play. And Cubitt was like, no, this is not Shorty. This is Bill Cubitt, head coach at Widener. And since that time, I got those two mixed up. But Cubitt again, kept following up with me and making sure that I was coming to Widener, making sure that there was no interruption as far as losing a year, going from D2 to D3. So I mean, all of that worked out well. But yeah, to me, it was I was ready to play. I thought I was going to play for Man Love, not knowing that Cubitt came in, when we came into camp. So it was a huge surprise for me in a way.
Yeah, I can understand that. I was involved a lot earlier than that. I mean, I remember going to campus for one of the visits, and it was snowing. So it was still in the winter, so wow. I committed pretty early. But yeah, I know that I kind of took it a little bit lackadaisical. I really didn't prepare myself that summer before my freshman year, like I probably should have, and I just didn't really. I really didn't know. And I remember walking into camp and seeing who did I see? Tony Johnson and Paul Dixon and all these guys that were almost 300 pounds, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm not. There's no way I'm going to play. Why am I wasting my time? But I remember walking in and walking into register, right there where all the dorms were, and Coach Sam is seeing me and taking me around and introducing me to a bunch of other coaches, and he wasn't doing that with anyone else. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, maybe they know something I don't. So it was kind of a cool, at least my first, few minutes on campus. But yeah, the rest is kind of history that I'm sure we'll touch on as time goes on. But I mean, I think talking about football, talking about freshman year, we missed. Let's talk about camp, man. How was your camp experience? What do you think? How about your stories about camp? Yeah,
you got some good ones. I got some good ones.
Yeah,
yeah.
I got a few. So, why don't you go ahead? Why don't you?
Something here?
Yeah.
What, you need to?
Yeah, no, I don't.
She's not allowed to divorce you.
No. She's good. She, that's all water under the bridge at this point, right? Oh man, no. I mean, just there's so. I mean, I so many stories. I've been trying to think through, some good times and even some bad times. Being all banged up and which hoping and praying that the dorm room we got had good air conditioning and taking stealing all the food we could out of the cafeteria and everything. But just
right.
Yeah, but my first camp, my roommate was Dave Braxeter. So for those who are not aware, Dave was a year ahead of Boonta and I at Widener. He went on to become a 2-time captain and had a great run at Widener. I think he was a 2 or 3 time all conference, and he was beyond all American academically, 4.0, right. The whole thing. Incredibly intelligent guy, very dry, funny sense of humor. And a hell of a player and a strong bastard. I mean, he was a strong guy. But he was my roommate in camp my freshman year, and again, just kind of coming into my own. I mean, I had just turned 18 years old. I was still very young for my age, I guess, or for my year. I'm still trying to figure out myself, and he made it a lot easier. We had a lot of fun and during the day in practice, and when we were, I swear to God, our room smelled like Doritos and farts and what was that cream? Flexol 454 was the stuff he would rub that shit all over himself constantly just to cut down on whatever pain he was feeling. But we did have a lot of fun in there, and we became pretty good friends. We played together for 3 years. We started together all 3 years together that he was with us, and it was fun. But I'm just trying to think of some of the other, I guess from my experience. I mean, there's a million things we could touch on. That, but just it was a good way for me to break into camp and to become part of Widener. It was a good roommate. So I don't know who did you room with, Boone?
So my room was Weiss.
Oh, you guys are gonna be. How did you get stuck with an offensive lineman?
I don't know. Like, it was me and Weiss. It's kind of funny because I just broke off a relationship, right? Coming to school and a little bit heartbroken, but at the same time, it's like I had to move on. I think I didn't know Weiss too well at the time, but knowing him now, like the music he listens to, like the hard rock, heavy metal, all that. Dude, I must be killing him because like every time I go to bed, I was listening to like B101, all like the love songs, trying to put myself to sleep. It was probably like eating it up inside, but no, like I said, it's ended up being a great roommate, being a great friend, through college and till now. So, that's I remember like walking in there like our freshman year, camp, right? I pulled in my white, MR2. All I had was like maybe 5 pairs of clothes. I packed really light. I didn't even have a bed sheet. I just had a blanket, dude, and a pillow. So I was just laying on the bed, dude, with my blanket. I had no bed sheet on. White just looked at me like, "Are you effing crazy or what?" His bed, like, it looks nice, it looked comfortable. Mine was just like a bed, dude, like the mattress. Sleeping on the mattress, for 2 weeks, man. So that was like my story there, meeting Weiss, But I think another story too, like, going back to camp was, I felt like a little bit intimidated, because, I was, 5'6", 145 pounds.
Yeah.
And, when we had our tests, right, like the 40 time, we had our, like the bench press, we had, all these other tests, right, like they were like looking at us and checking, our skills and all, right? So I remember like Ronnie DiMaria, I swear that dude, he got on that bench. I was struggling just to get like 225 up like 3 or 4 times, because I'm not like a super strong guy. And DiMaria's like a little bit, he might be like an inch shorter than me, but he was jacked. He put 225 up, it was like nothing. So I felt intimidated, like this little dude, but built, and just jacking that stuff up with no problem. I was like, oh man, that's like this is gonna be the long, camp for me, right? And then like seeing how the other guys are built, like Cooper, right? And Wilmot, those two.
Yeah.
I mean, that's. If you want to look at like Muscle Magazine, you got those two, right?
Yeah, they were big guys, man. I know that when I saw those two, I was like, oh my god, what? But then, and I felt very similar to you, Boone. Like I said, I was woefully unprepared. Going into freshman year camp. I mean, I had not really run much. I had not lifted much, at least steadily, and but I was just gave it a shot, and I figured, all right, well, I know I'm able to play. I'm skilled enough to play, and once they put the pads on, which back in the old days when I guess maybe it would have been the 3rd day of camp. Back then, they would basically, we'd have our breakfast or whatever, and everyone would go down, have meetings. We'd suit up, and we went out on the field, and we did some maybe some light stretching, and then they basically shut down practice, and everyone came over to watch the offensive line versus the defensive line just pound each other for probably about a half hour. Everyone, they'd set up the chutes, and they would just do one-on-ones, man, and it was raucous. It was awesome, and I remember the first guy I went up was Tony Johnson. I mean, Tony Johnson was a guy that we ended up playing with for a couple of years, who was a big guy. He had to be 6'4", 6'5". He wasn't a huge guy. He was probably 260, something like that. I mean, he was a sizable man, but not 300 or 350 or anything like that. But he was a pretty big guy, and he played defensive line. And I remember, I'm like, oh my god, I'm just looking at this guy like, oh my god. And they blew the whistle, and I stood him straight up, and I got my hands underneath his shoulder pads, like held the bottom of him, and jacked him into his neck and just stood him straight up. And it was awesome though. It was great. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be okay. I know I'm not the strongest guy or the fastest guy or anything, but I got technique. I'm not gonna let anybody beat me here like this. So,
Right.
I never lost a 1-on-1 in 4 years. So I even have had to rip the guy's helmet off or something like that. But that was those were awesome scenes, man. They were great. But and then after that, I learned my lesson. I got in pretty good shape usually. For camp after that, it's something that I think about, Boone, and you and I know being around the team like we are. I mean, today at the school, it's much more of a culture for the kids on the team than it was when we were there. They're taught how to eat and when and where to study and all these other things, and they're really looking at these kids and taking care of them in a much more attentive way, than they did when we were there. I mean, we were just dropped off, and we were told go to class and show up at practice at 2:30 or whatever, and that was it. I mean, so we were, I it's one of the things I regularly say is I can't believe that the coaches, fed their families off of morons like me, but. They did it, so, but, it's just funny how things have changed, there. But those are a couple of, fun memories from camp.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like, I remember, like, camp. I mean, I had a vivid memory, like, just freshman year camp, because, walking in there, we had like how many, like over 200 kids like show up for camp.
Yeah, it was about 200, and it happened more than once.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's like you just see like week after week, like they just like fall out of the picture, right? I mean, some of them came in. I remember our freshman year, we had this kid named. And he was my freshman roommate as well, Jimmy Fair. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I remember Jim.
Yeah. So, when I was talking on the phone, with Jimmy, this was right before camp started, just getting to know each other because we were college freshman year, roommates, right? And we were just talking, and, I was like, hey, Jim, tell me a little bit about yourself. He said, oh, yeah, I'm All-State South Jersey. I played tight end, but also like DN. I run like a 4.7. I'm like, oh man, this dude must be a stud, right? And I get to camp, I meet Jim, and it's just a total opposite of like what I thought of Jim, right?
Yeah.
What I picture, all of a sudden he's like this guy, like homesick, like I think he misses his girl more than anything, and it's just like him. It affected him. Like, he was never there. Like, he was always away, always home on the weekends. Like, he didn't want to suit up for the JV games. That's how bad it was. He didn't want to suit up for the home games. So, but yeah, like, homesick. He's only like maybe 30 minutes away. But, for me, like, getting to know Jim, like, he was into like gore, like death metal, that kind of thing. I was like, oh man, I thought this was gonna be cool. Like, rooming with this guy. But I remember him just telling me, like, hey, he's like, hey, Boonta, let me have your schedule. My girl's coming over. You know what that means, right? Like, he wants some time, And one time I walked in on him, man. Oh, that was a mistake. He thought I was going to come back early, and I did. And I thought he would have been finished by then. I was like, oh, man. Man.
Yeah, I didn't have a football player roommate freshman year at it. Just some guy, and it didn't pan out. Luckily, then I roomed with Danny for the rest of the time. But that's Dan Adamski was a teammate of ours. Again, fraternity brother, lifelong friend of mine. We went to high school together, and we're best men at each other's weddings. So. I got a good one about him. I got a good story about him. Do you know when we played at Dickinson for 1994.
The championship game.
Yeah, when we played in the playoffs at Dickinson, and at the end of the game, they randomly picked a bunch of people to get drug tested, and and Danny and another guy that we played with, another defensive end, was Lloyd Hill, and they both got picked. And both of these guys were just massive human beings, and so they both get picked. But so everyone trying to rush out of there. We had won the game and trying to catch the bus and stuff. And Dan and Lloyd were in the shower, trying to finish up. And but during the game, for the game, Dan had a broken bone in his hand, so he had like one of those big balls on his hand. And when he was in the shower, he got mud all down one side where his broken hand was. So, and he couldn't reach it. He couldn't reach it with his other hand. So he asked Lloyd to wash it off for him. And he said Lloyd looked at him. And they were next, near each other in the shower, and then he looked at him, and he looked outside, and then just rubbed it real fast with soap and ran out. Oh shit!
That's a story to remember.
Oh man! So you know what? When I got married, he was going to give the best man speech, and he was obliterated drunk, and I think he spoke for about 8 seconds, right? And I'm like, I'm going to get this guy back. I'm going to really get him back. So when he got married, I roasted him, and I told everybody that story at his wedding. Oh man, that was funny.
Yeah, that's an awesome story.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that that's a perfect example of a story we want to try to bring up here. Lighthearted, fun, football related. All these great things that you and I are already just rapping about here. We want to get the same perspective from as many people as possible, and especially guys that we played with, and then before us, and those are everybody before Boonta and I are all pretty much are man love guys. So
right.
We want to definitely get their perspective because they had tons of success and lots of great teams and so forth, and then after us, with Swan and Woody and then everybody. So and now up to Coach Kelly. So we want to have a place to capture these great stories, man. We've been telling them for 25 plus years, and everyone seems to like it. So we got this medium now. We're going to try to capture, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we like to know how was it like playing for Man Love? What was it? What was it about his great coaching? He won 2 national championships, so we love to hear those stories. And then, along with Cuban, we can tell all the stories about Cuban, right? We can tell all the stories about Milan, because we played for them, and we just like to compare and see the different eras, and just bring the brotherhood together, right? I mean, it's a W, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about.
That's right.
So, definitely want to hear all the stories, and funny ones, serious ones, whatever, but bring it to the table and share it with everybody.
Absolutely, Boone. Oh man,
I have plenty more, but I think we want to save it for the other, for the rest of the the podcast as well. As we hopefully invite more and bring more people into this, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. We're planning on begin to invite people in here to our little circle. And hopefully we'll capture some great stories that'll be entertaining for everybody that they'll like to listen to when they can. It's just it's a great thing. I'm very proud of I'm very proud of this. I know you are too, Boonta, and I can't wait to see where we take it next. So.
I am. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear all the stories, but I'm excited for, like I said, for us, getting this one together and kind of like the initial launch and taking it forward, man.
Yep, absolutely. Well, let's wrap it up here, Boonta. we'll work on getting us some guests, and we'll record our next podcast in the very near future. Right?
Absolutely, I'm excited, Pete.
Yep.
So.
All right. Well, for everyone that's listening, again, my name's Pete Garcia, and my co-host is
Boonta
K, my man. And we will see you on the next History of the W. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody.